The Palestinian Health Ministry has calculated that since October 7th, Israel has killed more than 29,000 Palestinians and injured nearly 70,000, with thousands more missing or buried under the rubble. And the Israeli army's systematic attacks on hospitals continue. As of Monday, the Nasser medical complex in Khan Yunis, which has been under siege by Israeli forces for 2 weeks, is no longer functional following Israel's raid and siege. 70 hospital staff have been arrested, 136 patients have been reportedly trapped inside, 8 patients have died from lack of oxygen supply, and there is no electricity, food, or water, according to Medical Aid for Palestinians. On Tuesday, the World Health Organization reported that the agency led a complex mission with the Palestine Red Crescent Society and the UN's Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs to facilitate the transfer of dozens of patients from Nasser Hospital to other hospitals in Gaza. Prior to the mission, the WHO says it had received 2 consecutive denials to access the hospital, causing delays in urgently needed patient referrals and leading to the death of at least 5 patients in the intensive care unit.
Situation. This hospital is the most important referral hospital south of Wadi Gaza. It's now on its knees. The entire neighborhood around here is damaged and destroyed. The hospital itself has no electricity, has no food, has no water. There's very few doctors and nurses. They're living here in the premises, working around the clock. WHO, 𝐓𝐡𝐞, and the colleagues from UNICEF, we're trying our best to get at the most critical patients here. Working with the director of the hospital, he's identifying them. We're trying to move them out. It's a slow process. We have 4 ambulances from the Palestinian Red Crescent Society. We can put 2, maybe 3 patients in the most in these ambulances. The road coming in here is very, very hard to manipulate. We're going to be back here as long as it takes to make sure the patients that need more medical care can get to it where they need to.
That was a video from the WHO. We'll have more on Nasser Hospital later on in this broadcast. Meanwhile, the situation in Al-Amal Hospital in Khan Yunis continues to be critical following a 30-day siege by the Israeli military, reports the United Nations. On Tuesday, the Palestine Red Crescent Society said that Israeli forces attacked Al-Amal Hospital several times, quote, resulting in significant damage to the hospital facilities, in addition to injuring 3 of the patient's companions. On Monday, PCRS reported that, quote, the water desalination station at the facility is no longer functional after being hit by Israeli forces, and that available drinking water is only sufficient for 3 days. The facility already faces a lack of fuel reserves to generate electricity for high-risk patients and a near exhaustion of food supplies, and has reportedly sustained damage due to the recent artillery shelling. Children and pregnant and nursing women in Gaza are continuing to be deliberately starved by Israel. UNICEF, the United Nations Children Fund, reported on Monday that, quote, a steep rise in malnutrition among children and pregnant and breastfeeding women in the Gaza Strip poses grave threats to their health, according to a comprehensive new analysis released by the Global Nutrition Cluster. As the ongoing conflict in the Gaza Strip enters its 20th week, food and safe water have become incredibly scarce, and diseases are rife, compromising women and children's nutrition and immunity, and resulting in a surge of acute malnutrition. In its report, the Global Nutrition Cluster says that more than, quote, 90% of children aged 6 to 23 months and pregnant and breastfeeding women face severe food poverty, eating 2 or fewer food groups each day. The food they have access to is of the lowest nutritional value. UNICEF adds that almost 16%, or 1 in 6 children under the age of 2, are acutely malnourished. Of these, UNICEF says that almost 3% suffer from severe wasting, the most life-threatening form of malnutrition, which puts young children at the highest risk of medical complications and death unless they receive urgent treatment. As the data were collected in January, the situation is likely to be graver today, the agency adds. The report also finds at least 90% of children under 5 are affected by one or more infectious disease. 70% had diarrhea in the past 2 weeks, a 23-fold increase compared with the 2022 baseline. Dr. Mike Ryan, executive director of the WHO's Health Emergencies Program, said that, quote, hunger and disease are a deadly combination. Hungry, weakened, and deeply traumatized children are more likely to get sick, and children who are sick, especially with diarrhea, cannot absorb nutrients well. It's dangerous and tragic and happening before our eyes. UNICEF's Deputy Executive Director for Humanitarian Action and Supply Operations, Ted Shaban, stated that, quote, the Gaza Strip is poised to witness an explosion in preventable child deaths, which would compound the already unbearable level of child deaths in Gaza. We've been warning for weeks that the Gaza Strip is on the brink of a nutrition crisis. If the conflict doesn't end now, children's nutrition will continue to plummet, leading to preventable deaths or health issues, which will affect the children of Gaza for the rest of their lives and have potential intergenerational consequences. At the same time, the World Food Program stated on Tuesday that it is pausing deliveries of life-saving food aid to northern Gaza, quote, until conditions are in place that allow for safe distributions. The agency said that they were making this decision because crowds of hungry people have been climbing aboard their trucks and claimed that convoy on Monday, quote, faced complete chaos and violence due to the collapse of civil order. Several trucks were looted between Khan Yunis and Deir al-Balah, and a truck driver was beaten. The remaining flour was spontaneously distributed off the trucks in Gaza City amidst high tension and explosive anger, the World Food Program said. They added that, quote, a large-scale expansion of the flow of assistance to northern Gaza is urgently needed to avoid disaster. To achieve this, WFP needs significantly higher volumes of food coming into the Gaza Strip from multiple routes. Additionally, crossing points to the north of Gaza must open. A functioning humanitarian notification system and a stable communication network are needed, and security for our staff and partners, as well as for the people we serve, must be facilitated. Al Jazeera reported over the weekend that at least one Palestinian man was killed and many others wounded in northern Gaza after Israeli forces opened fire on desperate crowds waiting for food aid, according to the witnesses and videos. The Palestinian human rights organization Al-Mizan said that the International Court of Justice's provisional measures order to Israel was clear: ensure basic services and humanitarian aid reach Palestinians in Gaza. WFP's pause in food assistance to northern Gaza, citing safety concerns, underscores Israel's failure to comply with these legally binding measures. As Western media and its liberal elite continue to peddle Israel's unsubstantiated and unevidenced claims that Israeli women were sexually assaulted en masse on October 7th, they are curiously silent after a statement was released by UN experts on Monday, who expressed alarm that Palestinian women and girls continue to be raped, assaulted, tortured, and executed by Israeli occupation forces in the occupied West Bank and Gaza Strip. Quote, Palestinian women and girls have been reportedly arbitrarily executed in Gaza, often together with family members, including their children, according to information received, the UN states. Quote, we are shocked by reports of the deliberate targeting and extrajudicial killing of Palestinian women and children in places where they sought refuge or while fleeing. Some of them were reportedly holding white pieces of cloth when they were killed by the Israeli army or affiliated forces, the experts said. The experts expressed serious concern about the arbitrary detention of hundreds of Palestinian women and girls, including human rights defenders, journalists, and humanitarian workers in Gaza and the West Bank since October 7th. Many have reportedly been subjected to inhuman and degrading treatment, denied menstruation pads, food and medicine, and severely beaten. On at least one occasion, Palestinian women detained in Gaza were allegedly kept in a cage in the rain and cold without food. Quote, we are particularly distressed by reports that Palestinian women and girls in detention have also been subjected to multiple forms of sexual assault, such as being stripped naked and searched by male Israeli army officers. At least 2 female Palestinian detainees were reportedly raped, while others were reportedly threatened with rape and sexual violence, the experts said. They also noted that photos of female detainees in degrading circumstances were also reportedly taken by the Israeli army and uploaded online. The Geneva-based Euromed Human Rights Monitoring Group said that it welcomed this new statement and said that, quote, it should be adopted as an additional document to hold Israel responsible for its violations against Palestinian civilians. This is especially important as the International Court of Justice is deliberating over South Africa's lawsuit, which accuses Israel of committing genocide in the Gaza Strip. Maureen Claire Murphy reports that on Tuesday, the United States vetoed a draft United Nations Security Council resolution demanding an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. 13 states voted in favor of the Algerian initiative, while the UK abstained. It was the third time that Washington exercised its veto at the Security Council in the past 4 months in order to prolong Israel's military campaign in Gaza, which the International Court of Justice determined in an interim ruling to plausibly constitute a genocide. Maureen adds that Algeria's ambassador to the UN said following the vote that, quote, the wrong decisions today will have a cost on our region and our world tomorrow, and this cost will be violence and instability. In addition to the nearly 30,000 recorded deaths and 70,000 injuries, quote, a report by independent researchers in the US and UK projects that even if hostilities ended now, there would be some 8,000 excess deaths in Gaza over the next 6 months due to traumatic injuries, malnutrition, infectious disease, and lack of access to medical care, Maureen reports. The researchers say that without a ceasefire, more than 58,000 Palestinians will die in the next 6 months from excess deaths. We'll have more on the UN and the International Court of Justice coming up in a few minutes. And for more, read Maureen Claire Murphy's latest report, U.S. Blocks Gaza Ceasefire Demand at Security Council for Third Time, on electronicintifada.net. And finally, excerpts of some of the features we've published from contributors in Gaza over the last few days. Hassan Ahmed Abu Sitta writes, quote, 3 months ago, my family and I were forcibly displaced from our home in Khan Yunis, southern Gaza. The Israeli attacks on our area were relentless. I had been preparing to enter law school at Al-Azhar University. My goal is to become a lawyer and defend Palestine in international courts. But my plans were on hold as we took shelter at a girls' school in Khan Yunis. I slept in a classroom with the other men. We all slept on the cold tile floor without mattresses. This was hard, especially for older people. Then in December, the Israeli army attacked the nearby Hamad city. Our building shook during the explosions. Read more from Hassan Ahmed Abu Sitta's latest feature, Waiting to Die in Rafah, on electronicintifada.net. And our contributor, Ruwaida Amr, reports that, quote, almost 400 schools in Gaza have been damaged or destroyed during the current war. These schools previously served approximately 460,000 children and 17,000 teachers. According to United Nations estimates, at least 55% of schools will require either major repairs or complete reconstruction. Samia Salim taught mathematics in the Tel al-Hawa area of Gaza City before the war. She laments how Israeli troops laid siege to the area. Schools and other civilian infrastructure were shelled. Salim fled Gaza City for Rafah in the south 2 months ago. With classes unable to function as normal, she had observed how children and parents are still trying to learn in a more informal setting. Many children are reading and learning math in tents. Read more from Ruwaida Amr's latest feature, Right to Education Robbed from Gaza's Children, on electronicintifada.net.
Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit like, leave a comment. These engagements help us with the YouTube algorithm, and it helps us to get around Silicon Valley censorship as much as possible. It does make a difference. You can also support our journalism by going to electronicintifada.net and clicking on Donate Now. Thank you.